was something astir in the aviation world during the Mac Robertson race. A pair of airliners gave a purpose-built racer a run for its money. And those with an eye to the future could see a time when airliners, not racers, would rule the skies.
The Mac Robertson race showed that airplanes could cross vast oceans. It was only a matter of time before a sea change revolutionized naval warfare.
Without air power, the nation is lost. Armies can only entrench whole land. Navies will be sunk during the first few weeks of war by air power. What determines the war today? The direct attack of the vital centers of an enemy.
Billy Mitchell's predictions came true, but he ended his career in disgrace for insubordination. The mating of ships and aircraft has produced one of the most versatile and powerful weapon systems ever created, weapons with a long reach. The Wright brothers built their airplane to prove a machine could fly and to make money. In 1908, they won a contract to build the first military aircraft, and Wilbur thrilled crowds by flying in complete circles. That astonishing maneuverability was made possible by the Wright brothers' three-axis control system. A front-mounted elevator controlled movements up and down. The rudder left and right, while a wing warping mechanism stabilized the airplane and banked the wings. Orville Wright lived to see that basic control system modified and improved, and even fly on jets. The Wright brothers' flight may seem like the beginning of aviation, but it came about 120 years after the first truly important milestone of flight. One of the biggest crash tests ever conducted used a surplus transport to evaluate explosive-resistant fuels and the safety of passenger compartments. The remote-controlled airliner smashed into the ground and ran a gauntlet of steel that ripped open the fuel tanks. The special fuel didn't work as well as expected, but cameras inside the cabin showed that properly restrained passengers could survive even this spectacular accident.
Years ago, I couldn't see how anything as light and fluffy as a cloud could be dangerous. Then, one day I saw a big, fat thunderstorm green in the center like an ugly bruise in the sky. I tried to fly underneath, and it nearly sucked me up into its belly, like an airplane-eating monster. That was in the days when what didn't kill you made you a better pilot. Believe me, we do it better today.
Glide slope. Glide slope. Wind shear. Wind shear. Wind shear. Too low gear. Too low gear. Safely. Terrain. Terrain. Terrain.
Accidents have long taught people to fly the hard way, even in the days of aviation's earliest birdmen. Early parachutes often worked about as well as turn-of-the-century flying contraptions. An Austrian tailor named Franz Reichelt thought his parachute suit worthy of a test flight off the Eiffel Tower in 1912. He didn't live to try an improved model. While some inventors dreamed of imitating the silent, graceful flight of birds, other visionaries laid more ambitious plans to rocket people into outer space. Ultralights take pilots back to aviation's earliest days. Just 80 years after such machines first flew, aircraft of breathtaking power now streak across the skies. Centrifuge tests show that the greatest limitation on a modern jet fighter isn't engine thrust or wing strength. It's the pilot's ability to withstand crushing G-forces during tight turns and sudden pull-ups. At first, G-loads are just uncomfortable, but as G's increase, blood drains from the brain even as the pilot strains against the force. Vision dims, then contracts to a narrow tunnel. If G's continue to build, modern fighters can pull about 9 times the force of gravity. The pilot simply blacks out. Some of the greatest bombers ever built never dropped a bomb in combat. They were part of a vast armada of aircraft that fenced but never fought in a long Cold War. The Cold War warmed up occasionally as each side probed the other's defenses. Sabres tangled with MiGs, or with disguised American trainers in movies like Jet Pilot. And in the movies, there was always an extra surprise when a defector broke through the Iron Curtain.
A woman.
The vast air power each side assembled during the Cold War never met in a full-scale battle. But the conflict in Korea did pit jet against jet for the first time. Jets like the Grumman F-9F Panther joined the Navy in Korea. Movies like The Bridges at Toko-ri showed how these jets flew from carriers designed for slower, lighter World War II prop planes, making shipboard operations like catapult launches extra hazardous. Small and slow by today's standards, Panthers still proved a potent weapon against bridges, roads, and other ground targets. But surviving the mission was only half the battle. Putting a jet back on the tiny, crowded deck was the biggest challenge. A test with no room for error. Bomber command squadrons relied on special pathfinder planes to help them find their targets. These trailblazers were just some of the aerial sneaks and sleuths used by both sides. It's hard to tell why some airplanes look the way they do, but there's usually no mistaking the purpose behind a special breed of X-plane, the winged rocket. An X-15 flight began with the research aircraft dropping like a bomb from a B-52. A powerful rocket engine quickly kicked in for just 80 to 120 seconds, long enough to push the X-15 to the edge of space, and far beyond the sound barrier. Then, its fuel exhausted, the rocket plane suddenly became a falling rock. The X-15 glided back to Earth in about 9 minutes, extended its landing skids, and touched down on a dry lake bed, like the space shuttle does today. The Zero's performance came from engine technology and aerodynamic advances made in the 1930s, when air racers set the pace for aircraft development. Race Day at Reno. It's a spectacle that recalls the 1930s when pilots like Jackie Cochran, Roscoe Turner, and Louise Thadden chased their competitors around pylons and dashed cross-country, testing new airplanes, engines, and fuels to find out just how fast an airplane could fly. Today, World War II fighters have replaced the racers of aviation's golden age. Tweaked to extract the last bit of speed from pumped-up engines, each year they shave a few seconds off old records in a parade of technology long since eclipsed by jets. Unlike Charles Lindbergh, the other superstar of aviation's golden age, Amelia Earhart was well known before she made her most famous flights, thanks in part to publicity drummed up by her publisher husband. Although often compared to Lindbergh, the press even called her the Lady Lindy, Earhart was never considered a great pilot by her peers. But as an articulate spokeswoman and hero to millions, she did much to further the cause of women aviators. But then her career was cut short by one of aviation's enduring mysteries, her disappearance over the Pacific. Brightly painted airplanes were badges of honor to the first fighter pilots, who fancied themselves new knights of the air. From the ground, a World War I dogfight looked like a gentlemanly fencing match. But as this scene from the movie The Blue Max shows, to the pilots, aerial warfare was more like hand-to-hand combat. To make a kill, they had to lock onto their prey and fire at close range, close enough to see their opponent's faces. By the end of World War I, some military leaders realized that air power had revolutionized combat. To prepare for the next conflict, they studied the lessons learned in the Great War. The rapid development of aircraft during World War I did more than inspire nightmares of future aerial assaults. It also made possible the first long-distance flights by aircraft across the vast Atlantic Ocean. Even in semi-retirement, Lockheed's SR-71 Blackbird owns the record book. It still flies faster and higher than any other jet-powered aircraft. But spectacular performance comes at a price. An SR-71 flight begins with a mid-air refueling to top the tanks and ends like a drag race. Even 30 years after it first flew, Blackbird's needle-sharp nose, pointy engine intakes, and oddly angled fins still look futuristic. Most of the incredible aircraft that came from the Skunk Works were worked on in secret for years. They were just some of the top-secret milestones of military aviation. People who restore old airplanes often want to preserve the spirit of aviation's golden age, the era of barnstormers.
I always knew that I wanted to fly. From the time I was a little girl, I had posters of airplanes on my wall, and other little girls had pictures of horses and unicorns and things like that. I always had airplanes and 747s. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that I started taking flying lessons, and I spent about 5 years in Alaska learning to fly, and I got my commercial and instrument rating, and then I got my instructor rating and started teaching before I did aerobatics. I went to an air show, and I always knew that I wanted to do aerobatics. I'd always loved roller coasters and rides and anything that was sort of, tumbling and being upside down. For me, winning the U.S. Nationals, especially for the first time, was the biggest achievement in my life and the thing that I'm most proud of. Questions that everyone asks me: are there opportunities for women in aviation? And I say, yes, go for it. There's nothing to stop you. I'm a pilot. My little sister is an airline pilot. I know a lot of women that fly, and it's a great challenge.
Pilots love to argue about which airplane is truly the best. One aircraft, however, makes almost every pilot's list of truly great planes: the DC-3. The good old Goonie bird may be a grandfather, but it's still not ready to turn in its wings. 60 years ago, it revolutionized air travel with a spacious cabin and overnight service. The SkyTrain delivered the goods, transported troops, and carried home the wounded in World War II. And the DC-3 carries on. It might even be the only airplane still flying, 100 years after it first took to the air. A blimp has ballast tanks like a submarine. To change buoyancy and compensate for changing atmospheric pressure, a blimp captain can release or add air to these airbags called ballonets. They also serve as trimming devices, helping to point the nose up or down. A modern hot air balloon gets its lift from a propane burner that heats and expands the air inside the envelope. This hot air, less dense than the surrounding atmosphere, makes the balloon rise, like a bubble in a glass of soda. To descend, a balloon pilot just lets the air inside cool. Or, to come down quickly, opens a valve at the top to vent the hot air.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard Microsoft World of Flight. This is Captain Hal up here in the flight deck, and ATC tells us that we should have a pleasant ride all the way to our final destination. So I'm going to flip on the autopilot and... Oops, there we go. Now, I want you all just to sit back and relax. And, oh, click that start button if you'd like to come up and visit the flight deck. The planes we fly these days sure have come a long way. It wasn't too many years ago that pilots had to wear a helmet and goggles, and now, well, I need special bifocals just to read all the computer displays. Wonder where I put those things. Well, anyway, with all the computers up here, I got plenty of time to monitor the systems and still keep you up to date on our progress. As you can see, modern airliner computers keep track of everything from the tire pressure to our ground speed. We can come in for a landing when the fog is so thick you can't see past your nose, which is what I'm going to have to do if I don't find my glasses here. Well, anyway, these displays might look confusing, but they're a big improvement over the cockpits in the old days.
Hey, Larry, where's the forklift? Forklift? It's over there by the baggage loader.